Yeah, well, how's it going? Back in another video. This time I'm inside. It just happened to be, yeah, it's pretty cold outside today. So I figured I will record this inside. Trying to hold my phone while I'm walking outside is a little bit of a challenge because it's cold. So, but that's not what I want to talk about this week. This week I want to chat a little bit about something I was working through with one of my clients, and just kind of a newer client, so we're just trying to get things started from a diet perspective. And as always, when I start working with someone, I try to make the least amount of changes to their way they are currently eating as possible to start to move them in the direction that they want to go based on their goals. And that's because I don't want to turn anyone's life completely upside down when I don't need to, right? I've learned over the years as a health coach that there's lots of different ways, approaches, especially to diet, to getting to whatever the end goal might be. And of course, I have my bias as to, a way of eating that I think works for a majority of people. But I don't just throw that onto someone and completely change the way they're eating if they happen to be doing something different for me. And that's really just because I know for a fact that there have been a lot of success stories with people who achieve fantastic, amazing goals, and they eat completely differently than I do. And I'm 100% accept that and try to then meet the person where they're at. And one of the kind of more contentious things that people often do is, and actually, frankly, I used to kind of, not to an extreme degree, but I also used to kind of head down this route to some degree when I started working with clients, but I no longer do, is I would start to set strict kind of macro guidelines. I'd be like, okay, this is how much protein you should be eating. This is how calories overall you should be eating. This is where your carbs should be at, and this is where your fat should be at, right? And what I've learned over the years is that that approach works really well for me. Like, I'm a very detailed oriented person, and I like the fact that when I have strict rules and everything's dialed in and tracking stuff and all that fun stuff, but it doesn't always work very well for everyone. So that's not where I start with a lot of people. You know, I kind of actually what I tell clients when I first started working with them is, I want to see what your diet looks like without me even making any judgment on it at all. I don't say anything to them. I just say, hey, just track what you're eating. Don't pretend like I'm not watching for 2 weeks. I want to see what you would normally eat, how you would eat, types of foods you'd eat. Don't be embarrassed if you polish off a pint of Ben and Jerry's at night, or eat meals that have zero protein in them, or tend to, have a donut every day, every morning on their way to work, or you have 16 cups of coffee, or whatever it might be. Like, there's no judgment for me. I understand everyone has their own starting place, and that's why you're coming to me, right? You're coming to me for help. So I can only help you if I really see the accurate picture of the way your diet currently is, right? So I actually tell them, just tell me what you're eating, but like, don't just pretend like I'm not watching, right? Just keep on doing the thing you've been doing. And then from there, I start to make small tweaks. Like, and generally, it's just general like suggestions. Like, hey, I think it'd be good if we added some protein to this meal, or hey, have you ever thought about cutting back on the caffeine intake, or hey, how many nights a week are you really consuming alcohol? Is like a short stint where you're having to be consuming more, or is it just like the regular alcohol consumption? Right. So I start to look and kind of pick small things, and like I look for small wins, right? Where can we get some small wins, get some momentum building, and start to go there? The fact of the matter is that some people, like myself, respond better to more structure, right? And so this particular client, I was just like, okay, I've been kind of making some suggestions here now and then. You've made some great progress and made a lot of changes, but I felt like it was time to, like, he would do better with some structure and more detail in his diet. And so I set some macros for him, and he was like, this is great. Like, I'm so glad I have these specific numbers I need to hit. And now I have some targets and I can, like, really dial things in. And he's been like really dialing things in over the past few weeks. But the approach that I was kind of resisting in the beginning was something that actually is working really well. And I'm not regretting starting out with a more or less structured approach, right? Because I don't think that people can live in the structured tracking macros mindset their entire lives, right? People don't want to do that. They don't want to weigh their food. They don't want to measure their food. Eventually, after they gain enough insight into how to eat to fuel their goals, they can drop the tracking, right? Because they can intuitively do that for the most part. Now, I'm not saying that intuition doesn't go off track and that maybe sometimes you have to check back in. I feel like a lot of people benefit from checking back in, tracking their food for a few weeks, a couple times a year, just to keep themselves honest. But, I feel like, in the beginning, to help people realize, the types where they should need to go, sometimes a more structured approach can work, right? And so I feel like, as always with everything that I talk about with health and wellness, there's different approaches that are going to work for different people, right? I feel like, and we often get divided up into camps, and camps say, oh, no tracking, tracking's evil, calories don't matter, et cetera, et cetera. You can develop disordered eating and all that stuff. And I accept all that stuff. Like, there's certainly people who that can be triggering for them and gives them mental struggles and mental health problems and is stressful. And I fully acknowledge all that stuff. And then there's other people, like, if you just tell them to just kind of, hey, eat how you feel, don't really track, but hey, I want you to do this thing, that thing. They're like, flail around a little bit. Like, well, they didn't give me, very strict guidelines. So I'm just going to kind of wing it type of thing. Right. And then there's other people who are like, hey, I need very specific numbers. I live by numbers. You give me targets, I hit them. Like, they're very, that type of people. And that's where I kind of fall in. Like, you give me a target and tell me what I need to shoot for, tell me exactly what I need to do, and I'm going to make it happen. Right. So the personalities of the person really matter and how you implement those things. And I feel like each approach has a way of really accomplishing the same thing, but with a different mindset. Right. So in the intuitive thing, you might like tell them how to structure their plate and say, like, okay, a quarter of your plate needs to be some kind of protein, half of the plate needs to be vegetables and fruit, and then the other quarter of the plate needs to be, some kind of starch or carb. And you have 3 of those plates every single day, and you get to have 2 snacks that are the size of the palm of your hand that come from Whole Foods, right? And that's how you're essentially dictating their macros by doing that to some degree. It's not perfect. It's not accurate as measuring and weighing things, but like, essentially you're giving them rough guidelines on how to structure macros. And then, like, you can be like, okay, well, we're going to dial back the carbohydrates a little bit. So let's make 2 of those plates be, a quarter protein and 3/4 vegetables. And then the other plate you can have your quarter plate of carbs, right? And so you're essentially just like giving them macro guidelines, but you're just doing it via plates. But that works for people, right? Because it's not as rigid and structured and potentially triggering as other people. And then other people, I'm like, just tell me what to do. I don't mind measuring the thing. And like, I'd rather see the numbers as accurate as possible to know that I'm not lying to myself. And like, I'll get out those measuring spoons and scale and all that fun stuff and go forward that way. Both approaches working. I've been successful with clients with both approaches. So what I'm trying to convey in this video is really that you need to find and explore all the options, right? You probably have a general sense of like how you're going to do based on your personality, like, you best. So, trying to lean towards the one that you feel like is best for you. But then if it's not working for you, try to switch to a different approach, right? You don't maybe try less rigid. And like I said, the people who are very rigid, they probably need to learn how to be less rigid, right? And the people who are just kind of fly by the seat of their pants, they probably would do better spending some time being more rigid. And that benefits both people, right? And it's just that we tend to lean towards the one that best suits our personality. And that means we end up getting away with a little bit more than we normally would. So that's my video for today. I just wanted to convey that message. I thought it was a really interesting insight for me as a coach. And I think, when you're trying to work through these things with yourself, they're good insights for you to have as well. So try both approaches, try tracking, try being more or less structured based on what you've been doing in the past, and let me know how it goes. And what struggles do you have with kind of tracking your food? How do you go about doing it? I'd be interested to hear. Like, please leave comments below and shoot me a message and stuff like that. As always, if you want to keep up with all the content that I'm putting on a weekly basis, please, the best way to do so is to sign up for my newsletter. You can go to rjbhealth.coach, click on the newsletter link at the top, and you will see a form there. enter your email address and you sign up for the newsletter. I do have a couple of one-on-one coaching spots open. So if you're interested in getting some extra help with dialing your diet, please reach out to me. Again, the best way to do this is to go to rjbhealth.coach, click on the schedule discovery call button that you see on the homepage and fill out that form. Or again, you can just message me directly and you can chat a little bit about that. And with that, I hope you all are staying warm, and I'll talk to you all next week.